Yeah. It should be, yeah.
I can, I can tell you're going to say something important here.
So, in a place where the person, but somewhere in southern Germany, um, but the location is really not so important. But it's the second time where the first time this man, close colleague, founder of the project in Colombia, the first time he said to me, this was 2 years ago. He was telling me again this morning. He said, "There's this place, and we went there, and we saw 400 ships coming down to land all around us." This is 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And me being me, you know, I mean, if somebody comes to you and you've got some idea about the person and their trustworthiness, and they say, "This place, you can see extraterrestrial entities. You've got that chance." Somebody like me just is running there as fast as I can, and I went there within
Yeah.
weeks. I went there within weeks, and it was clearly at that experience, it was quite clear to me that this was some kind of at least this place was some kind of portal, Stargate, interdimensional glitch, I don't know what, and
Yeah.
that indeed what he claimed was delivered. And so he said, maybe 6 weeks ago, he said, this time, at this particular time, it could be a really good chance of having another kind of experience like this, which I did. And I think before we go any further, it's worth looking into ourselves of what we have in mind when I say non-human greater intelligence.
Well, I assume for some reason I'm in a I don't nothing you said has indicated this, but I'm assuming non-physical. Um,
What it seems to me is yes, and no. Which it seems to me at this point is that the intelligence itself is the key things. I came away from this last weekend, and it's just, I don't know how to explain it, except it's like going from a knowing to an integration, to like a fact.
really?
Yeah. So, and the key things are uh, this non-human greater intelligence is present, means it's this whole, it's here or it's not here, or it's here or it's there, or it's all of that duality is not operating, it's present.
Okay, let me ask you quickly. Are we talking about a society, or are we talking about like the universal intelligence?
Neither, because if you say user, if you say universal, and if you say society, uh, that I didn't have an experience in that way. Perhaps for 15 seconds, but I could see how I might have that experience, but I can't say I had that, which means speak of intelligence. I don't speak of an intelligence and another intelligence and another intelligence. Okay?
Right.
Just a sense of intelligence. It's like being in the middle of a cloud. You have to use technically speaking, you have to use
Okay.
the zero article.
Could it be your intelligence?
Well, I'll go further. So universal intelligence makes me think of um, kind of if we know ourselves beyond any limit, we could say, oh, that's universal intelligence. but the intelligence itself is mostly still experienced in a human form.
It's experienced in human form. You mean
It's
you're experiencing it in your human form, or you're
the
it
intelligence.
has?
The intelligence is rather defined by a sense of being human. The perceiver is human and still is in human form. Means I'm human, so I experience this object, this intelligence, in a human way, even if it's non-dual, unlimited, universal. This
Okay.
still has this human quality to it.
Okay.
Okay, so then what this, I experienced it as yeah, non-human, clearly non-human, and but also non-human in me or in us. That
But
it's,
you're not simply accessing your higher intelligence. There's something different than that.
what do you mean by higher intelligence?
Well, I think that there's amazing things. Well, I've experienced amazing things, visions and information downloads, all kinds of things. And I've kind of come to the conclusion, just as a way of categorizing it, that it's me. That this is my higher self. This is my, regions of my mind that I don't normally access, or my innate intelligence, or if you want to even take it further, my at oneness with the universe. So that has an intelligence.
Yes.
And it's difficult to even talk about, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have more to say.
Yeah, I fully confirm those. That's been part of my experience, but somehow, for frequently, um, over many years, but somehow there's more integration of, there's more a sense of the human intelligence being more embedded within a greater intelligence instead of
Right.
human intelligence, even unbounded absolute intelligence, including non-dual understanding. um,
Yeah.
Even including that, there's still a different sense in myself, that now who I am, there's much more integration of the non-human aspect. It's as though my experience of thought, or any perceived object, is interpenetrated by this greater intelligence. So an example would be, if you're an ant, you've got intelligence. But if you say to the ant, somehow, if you could, um, uh, let me tell you about my human life, you'll blow the ant's brain immediately. The ant
Yeah.
doesn't have the capacity, but still, the ant could know in a deeper and deeper way, oh, my intelligence, or any part of me, is part of something bigger. And perhaps the ant's already a very smart ant and had already worked this out, but this is for an ant that's walked away from the ant colony and ant life and is pretending to be an individual. And I'll
It
give you,
sounds a little metaphorical.
but you get the point. The point is,
Yeah.
if there is greater intelligence, how on earth would we sense that greater intelligence? How would we, how, what part of that greater intelligence would we even realize we were experiencing?
Well, if it's a non-dual experience, it becomes really difficult to, you know, grasp and conceptualize. You know, all you can do are talk about things like ants and things. But
I have a different point of view. I have a different point of view.
well, okay.
Well,
Let
just
me.
okay. Please continue.
No, I mean, if it's a non-dual experience, it's hard to encapsulate it, right? It's hard to conceptualize a non-dual experience because your experience, you're trying to conceptualize non-duality within duality. If it's a non-dual, if it's a dual experience, if you've got, you know, if the sense is that this is an other, you're encountering an other, then it would be different. So I'm not clear whether your experience was of a non-dual nature or whether it was of another entity.
In some way, my experience is of a non-dual nature all the time. So,
Okay.
so that's the first point. You know,
But when you're talking about this intelligence, was it another intelligence or was it? It sounds like it was maybe indistinguishable from you. It's another aspect of you.
It presented in the experience. The experience was rather like having a 3D pilgrimage, walking up a mountain, preparing myself for this experience, having an experience of lights, three-dimensional lights, in a way that was very convincing. But it was really almost as though I don't think it was me, but rather the greater intelligence was projecting itself into a 3D or a 4D form.
Okay.
Does that make
So
sense?
someone standing next to you would not necessarily see the same thing you were seeing?
We four all saw it. We all,
You
four
four?
of us were together.
You all four
Yeah.
saw the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But also it seems, yeah, but it seems that fundamentally, you know, if you're a greater intelligence, which you might be a really greater intelligence, you might have 1,000,000 years more technology on top of what we have.
Yeah.
And we're already at the point where we absolutely can start to imagine reality and technology based on the implications of quantum physics around quantum entanglement, around the observer affects the observed, these, you know, what is it called? Spooky action at a distance, Einstein's quote. So if you've got 1,000,000 years or even 1,000,000,000 to develop technology at this quantum physics level, or this non-dual level, well, projecting a 3D phenomenon, it's how to say it another way. Let's say you're a human and you're looking at the ant. You've studied ants for a long time and you know how they communicate with each other. And therefore, because you're a human, you don't talk with them in a human way, but you've got the technology to create forms of communication, and forms of communication can be words or action or presence or objects, and if we're opening ourselves, saying yes, we want experience of non-human greater intelligence. Somebody's coming in.
There's Laura.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Lee.
Hi, Laura.
You're a beautiful color of gray.
Me?
Yes.
There's no. Yeah, you need to turn camera on so we can see you.
Oh.
The color suits you.
There you go.
Well,
Right there.
here I am. How are you
You're,
guys?
are you in England?
I am.
So we're going
my residence, my very messy residence.
getting cleaner and more in order every second. We're
Is
deep
that
in,
Okay, go ahead.
we're deep into the discussion of the weekend before last and what it means to meet, understand, know non-human greater intelligence. What could that be? And I'm talking about my own experience. We're recording and we're exploring, for anybody listening, what could it look like? And then I'm saying, well, this was indeed my experience. So we're deep
very
into
interesting.
details. Yeah.
Have you heard this all before, Laura?
I have. I've been there and touched that rock.
Were you there on this trip?
No,
No,
I've had many experiences of my own.
Yeah.
Should we go?
So I'm very intrigued. I'm listening. I'm all ears.
Should we go there, Laura? Do you want to talk about your experiences? Just to give you some framework, it's just, if you allow the possibility, very strange, in this universe of, is it trillions of galaxies, Leif? I think we have trillions of galaxies at this point, don't we? Certainly billions.
Yeah.
And each galaxy has a billion stars. But of course, intelligence on Earth, human intelligence, is of course the peak of what intelligence could be. It must be true. It's just a stupid little idea for half an hour. We're just imagining, just as a silly idea, that there might be somewhere in all of those galaxies, older ones, much, much older than ours, maybe just a possibility of a greater intelligence than good old us.
Yeah.
It's a very strange idea, but we're just playing with it,
Yeah. Well, it's you know how far we've come in 1,000 years in our society. Imagine 1,000,000 years.
Yeah. And especially if you think about in technology of the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And yet I'll argue that point, because I think we've actually regressed.
Yeah.
That will take us down a different track, Laura.
Okay.
So you know.
Okay.
Just because I think it would be really good. You can go there if you want to, but if we can, we're already onto a big subject, and you're just wanting to make it bigger.
I don't mean to. I can't help it if I'm an alien with high intelligence.
But at least before we go there, we can at least hear about your own experiences, what it looks like, how you experience it. I think that would be more helpful. Otherwise, we'll really blow everybody's minds. But my feeling is to walk more slowly. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Well, do you want to hear one of my experiences?
Sure.
Is that a sure yes or sure?
Well, yeah, I do want to hear one of your experiences. I'm still feeling like I was still trying to absorb Mo's experience from last weekend. And I think
that's why I was stopping Laura in her tracks. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I was doing that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it would be more, add more continuity if Mo finished and then
cool.
Laura kind of compared.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, the first experience of last weekend, the first night was really obvious with the lights. and how they presented, also sounds, and that was absolutely clear for me. You know, this was a three-dimensional experience, not a four-dimensional experience. And just because it's being recorded, a four-dimensional experience is like, it's like you have a three-dimensional experience, you experience an object out there, or in this case, lights out there. And a four-dimensional experience is when you see the object out there, but then there's a phenomenon between me and this three-dimensional experience. Do you agree, Laura?
Yeah.
So four-dimensional experiences have meaning, value, information. They're more ephemeral. That's not a Globish word. They're more easy to disappear. But three-dimensional experiences, they really feel like seems like an object out there, right? So on the first night, it was really quite clearly an object out there. That was the impression I had, and how it appeared, how it moved, how it seemed to interact with us, and it seemed very, very gentle. It was like if you, as an adult, approach a traumatized little kitten, right? And then you look at the kitten and you approach the kitten or a child very carefully, and the moment that the kitten or the child goes, "Wah!" then immediately stepping back. So lots of space, and this is exactly the experience was coming up, very present to us, and then somehow, sometimes for reasons that we didn't know for ourselves, it went back, and I feel it felt tensions within us that maybe we didn't even realize for ourselves. So the first night, so I'm just keeping the, Lee, you were asking about my experience, and so that was the first night, and that was, really clear. I felt very satisfied. And the second night I went up with.
Can I just interrupt and ask? Did you have the sense of seeing a being when you said you had the sense that it came closer, went away? Were you seeing a being, or did you just have the sense?
Lights. No, these were lights.
Lights.
There's a package of lights.
I'm rolling up my window here because it's getting noisy.
Okay. A package of lights. A set of lights.
Can I ask, was it a defined craft?
This time, no, Laura. The first time up that mountain, there was. Oh, wait. There was a sense of a craft at one point, and this was the point. There was a sense of a craft, and I considered to myself, shall I walk down the mountain to the craft? And I thought I was ready to do that. I was completely prepared to do that, but for whatever reason, I didn't do it. So to me, it makes me think that my readiness for that level of information was something that was holding me back.
Getting some feedback. What's that?
Laura's cat.
It's technically not my cat. We're hosting him. He seems to be stray and starving, and he talks really loud and a lot. But he's very underweight, but he seems okay otherwise, no collar. And I've got it inbuilt in the door in the house, there's a cat flap. So he comes and goes. So he stayed 2 nights with us now.
So he found a free meal.
Well, he seems to be really small. So He may be about 9 months, but he looks about 6.5, 7. And he's
Wow.
adorable. He's very friendly and loving, but very skittish. So it's like he's been out alone for a while. And it's getting cold. So basically, he's kind of got a safe house, but I'm not going to worry too much because I don't believe cats belong to anyone. I think they're alien. So.
Okay, so is this the same, Mo? Can we get
Yeah. So to complete, so the second night, is that your question, Lee?
go ahead. Whatever you're gonna say. That's fine.
Okay. So the second night, I went up, and of course, I expected the same experience again, which I had. Something's happening, which
Lower left.
yeah, she'll probably come back. So I did have some experience of the lights, but much less. But somehow my knowing of this greater non-human intelligence was much more deeply landed within me. And I had the feeling quite clearly, well, the message I intuited was, well, we show ourselves as a 3D form or a 4D form if we need to, for you to get the message. And if you get the message without us having to do that, then that's even better.
You got the sense that they were saying that they were showing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the message.
Okay. So they were presenting themselves as an ant, to use your earlier metaphor.
No, they were presenting as the human, and we were the ant.
Okay. But okay.
So, I think it's just a really important question. Firstly, is it possible to have? Is it possible for there to be greater intelligence first?
Yeah.
And then how would such a greater intelligence present itself?
Right. So that all sounds perfectly reasonable to me. What you're saying so far.
And what's interesting, Lee, is to me the whole world, the receptivity of many more people to this kind of information has gone up a lot. But you think of, I said it to my friend this morning, to Sami, and we remembered when we went up, when he first told me about this just over 2 years ago, and our whole system was like, wow, aliens are here. Wow, the possibility of meeting aliens. And now it feels absolutely normal. Nothing special about it whatsoever.
Oh, come on. No. It's not that ordinary to you now, is it?
There's a normality.
There's a normality to it, but it's okay.
There's a normality. It feels very normal.
Is that because you've had a shift?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
You've had a what?
Well, I feel
shift in your belief system.
Yeah, I feel Lee, this kind of contact, I'm pretty sure of it. It's not just an object meeting another object, just like we know between human beings, there's also a transmission happening. There's a transmission happening right now.
Yeah.
And imagine if you are a greater intelligence and you've become better and better and better at communication. Well, the possibility that you could very precisely download when somebody says, yes, I am open, I am completely open, I trust you, I invite you to do this, then a greater intelligence, just like a parent with a child, will download helpful information. It's not complicated if you think about the dynamic that we know, the dynamics that we know already.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay. So did it look very similar to what you saw, whatever it was 2 years ago or whatever it was?
Yes, yes.
It was pretty much the same.
The sounds were a new experience for me. There was like a kind of a low roaring.
Now, before the last time, the first time you did it, did you feel like you'd made contact, or did you just feel like you'd observed it?
No.
Didn't.
We had this very powerful. The first time it was. It was really the presence of a spacecraft down the hill, and it had been a very long night, but we still stayed there for 45 minutes looking at it, and I could feel like the spaceship was transmitting like a fax into my brain new ways for my brain to be. And I'm personally more and more convinced that our current use of our system is a lot less than it actually is. We think our brain and our brain function is this way, and potentially it also has many more ways of operating in more complex ways. And this structure is already in us.
Yeah.
This potential, this structure,
Yeah.
which, and the potential is only for us to say, it's time to turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah. Either activated or like Laura was saying, I think reactivated. I think some of the stuff is stuff we've just lost. You know.
Yes.
Is there anything that did you learn anything? Did you gain any knowledge that you can remember?
This was the key. This is the key thing. And I think there's more and more of a sense in me. So, key things to take away. First, there is greater non-human intelligence. Non-human means we as humans have so many assumptions about what being us is. We have human assumptions, and it might be that we're human, or it might be that we're something different, bigger, greater than human. But at the moment, we believe we're only human, right?
I don't, but maybe you do.
Oh, okay. What do you feel, Lee? What do you feel?
I don't feel that I'm only human. No, I have a very strong sense that I extend far beyond this body. In fact, I think this body is a little diving bell kind of thing, that the real me is much more extended than this.
Oh, cool.
And that's why I was asking if it was, if you felt like you were communicating with your higher self, or whether it was, an other.
Well, it was, there was not it's, at the moment it feels some sense of other, right?
Yeah.
But the other is somehow also me. But it also has a feeling of other. So it's going back to the question you asked before of when we have our highest experiences of deep insight, we feel it's fully us, right? And this has this feeling of it's me, but it's not me.
Well, I experienced different levels of that. I mean, to the point where I think some of it is mind. It's just normal functioning of the mind, that regions of the brain that we don't typically access. But then I also think that there are other things that go beyond that really feels like it's either an extension of me into non-duality or near non-duality, or it is, I've had experiences where I've really felt the presence of others. I've never seen them, but I've felt like I've been instructed by others, And then I question, well, was that an other, or was that, an extended version of me that knows more than the little corpuscle called Lee does,
Well, we have to, I think as we talk, we have to be careful how we talk about these things, so because there is one level when we can say, one way of looking, when we can say all of this is me.
Yeah. Well,
So
this gets back to the whole communication thing, and we're really being challenged by it right now. How do you communicate about these things without having to completely, and continually define the words and terms we're using?
I
But
have a
no,
fear.
I'm finding this very fascinating, Mo. I really do, and I feel like I've had experiences like what you're talking about, and so I'm very interested in how you're interpreting them. That's what I'm really trying to get at.
Well,
What you're bringing home to it.
it's interesting that I feel in this moment right now, I'm sharing words, but I feel there's also a heart transmission, actually. I feel like
Yeah.
simply by sharing these words, there's this is my impression, Lee, you have to confirm or not, but I feel this is, there is a heart opening through these words, that there is a
Yeah,
direct,
there's some
this is
nonverbal
upgrade.
communication.
This is
Yeah.
this is a process of upgrading. I know Laura wanted to say something, but you forgot. What?
No. Interestingly, while I've been listening to you guys, I realised that 2 episodes that I experienced, I believe now, I could be completely wrong, were direct correlation to emotional trauma. On 2 occasions, I had quite major things happen. And the interesting part of it was I was able to control what happened purely by thought, telepathically. And it's kind of, I'm going through shock at the moment right now, because it's just hit me. When something hits you and you think, oh my goodness. So it's interesting because I've seen all sorts of crafts over the years, everything from the bullet to watery looking things, something that switched from what looks like, those mother of pearl clear balls, and then it switched into a great big massive helicopter. Frightened the hell out of me and the people who were with me. So we've had some quite major experiences.
So before you go further, could you, as you talk about it, could you distinguish between what you experienced as a 3-dimensional experience or a 4-dimensional experience, just like we defined?
They've all been 3-dimensional. All. Because it's me as a human observing, not knowing or realizing what I'm watching, but glued, absolutely pivoted and unable to take my eyes away from it. And then stuff happening, which literally confirms I didn't imagine it. And absolutely, there's nothing on this earth like it. And then when you do the research and you see others have taken videos or expressed the same object, then you think, wow, we're not alone. It's quite an exciting experience because it opens up the possibility of there being everything. We're capable of so much. And the question is also, did I manifest this into my field? Or is this a separate thing that's already part of my field that I wasn't aware of? Does that make sense? So it's that which came first, the chicken or the egg?
What's certainly clear to me is that there starts to be a sense of, instead of feeling oneself as a separate 3-dimensional being, right? I'm Mo, I live in Berlin, I have this body, And there seems to be a sense of moving out of that into some space where if I want to, I can pick up that way of looking at the world, but really another greater way of looking at looking at existence, at the world, at existence. Have to change my language. Is somehow fits the felt, experienced reality. It fits it better.
That confused me. Sorry.
Good, thank you. All of it?
Yeah, in a nutshell, I've just gone, well.
Okay.
It could be me. I could be tired. Did you understand, Lee?
Yeah, I think I'm understanding Mo in a general way. I mean, I have all kinds of specific questions.
Please.
I can relate to it. I can relate to what he's saying.
The questions will be great, because we have to ask ourselves, if there could be greater intelligence, well, then it's got many different ways it could choose to communicate with us if it wants to.
Yeah.
But to open for I don't know what to appear to inform us. Yes, Laura?
Lee?
Well, I just wanted to ask, in this last week, this latest experience, did you actually go? So the first time you did not go down the mountain, you sat up there and watched it. Did you go down this time? Were you able to?
I didn't. And before I went, as I was traveling to this place, I thought about it. What if this situation happens? Then I'm definitely going to go and question and study, and I'm going to go to this craft. And if it appears like a craft like last time, and I'm going to knock on the door and say, let me in, because the 3D appearance of it is of lights and of the outline of a spacecraft. So of a large spacecraft of let's say, maybe 40, 50 meters long. So that's what I did before I arrived at the mountain, or before I walked up the mountain. I was very clear in my intention. However, when the opportunity was there and I asked myself, shall I go down the hill? And I didn't. And something regrets that now, but something in me felt not to do that.
You can't explain why, but you were not feared. You're not fearful.
It wasn't fear. It was not fear. I did not feel fear. I knew this presence was clearly
benevolent,
gentle, definitely not aggressive, benevolent, cautious. Yeah.
But you also know that you can return there if ever you do want to.
Return where?
To the mountain, because that's a normal occurrence there, isn't it?
Very normal.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it wasn't a do or die. This is the only moment in life. And I think that shifts things.
I feel it's like it's just so factual. It's just like, it's more obvious than the nose on my face. It's just like, there's something in me that goes, of course, how on earth did I ever think any differently?
I'm just curious, was there a moment, or have you thought about it since, that maybe you had subliminally implanted ideas after? Reactions?
All right, now I have to go to another experience. to try and answer your question. It's a very good question, Laura, and I think you know so much more than me. I think your question is around malevolent energy, right? Bad.
Not necessarily.
Horrible.
No, not necessarily.
Bad energy that. Oh, what were you thinking of?
Well, they're highly advanced. They operate the way we used to. It's all about telepathy, feeling energy, feeling emotion, like a small child does. So for me, it's like sometimes I know with a couple of my experiences, I've come away from it feeling altered. Although not any time could I ever even, I haven't even had any flashbacks to suggest that I've been abducted, but I know that something shifted in me, and I'm not sure if it was from my own experience or whether something else came into play externally that changed my view and softened maybe fear, or, you know, does that make sense?
I think so. What I experienced is, and I think it's a, is there any chance to put your camera on a fixed position, Laura? Because it's, no, there isn't. Okay. Okay. So I didn't hear you, but I guess what you said. So it's a really good question, and I think when we have this conversation, we have to understand our internal reality more and more. Now, I'm a big fan of meditation, of simple, still meditation, because if we do it, we start to learn about these different phenomena, and we start to see clearly, is it this or is it that? And if we don't, I can't hear you, Laura. Microphone. Oh, speaking to somebody else. So, you know, it's really important to know, well, what is a thought? What is a feeling? What is an energy that we can feel in our body? Or what is an implanted thought? Or what is an insight? And if we've never spent any time studying our own internal world, we're immediately a question like that, and we'll just go, I don't know. But if we study it, like you're asking me a question, Laura, and I can refer back to my internal experience at that time and also now, and I can answer the question. So I think for anybody listening, it's really important to be interested in our internal world and start to see, well, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, and they are different, and how they are different. So in answer to your question, it doesn't feel like an idea or a thought. A thought or an idea feels like an internal object with that is here, and then there's the context for the object of thought. But this feels like a factual reality, and then I find words for it, like a factual shift in me before thought or ideas, and now over the days, now it becomes more and more clear what it is, what this shift, this change in my being is. Yeah. Does that answer, Laura?
So you feel that your shift is genuinely from your own perception of things, and that nothing, kind of like whilst you were being observed by it, you know, the two-way observation, that you weren't, because I have understanding from many who've actually had experiences that there's an altered state of being that's implanted into them. One, to make them feel safe. Two, to feel the benevolence. So I know that you're sharp enough to know whether that was something you felt come into you, or whether after the fact you thought, oh no, this is okay.
My own experience was it was strictly neutral.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing being transmitted in that way. I felt the message of the first night and of the second night was I or we or it is here.
So
Present.
it was like an introduction.
Yes, it was like saying this fact is present, and
Okay.
and was also behaving in a way that wasn't smashing it in my face, saying bah, you know.
Yeah.
It was
Gentle.
doing it in a very gentle way.
Awesome. Lee?
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
Yes, Robert. Well, I mean, I think I feel like I've experienced things like that too. And I was, I guess what's running through my head is, my scientist hat is coming on. And,
very good. Excellent. We want your scientist hat.
What did you bring back from this? Did you bring back what kind of trophy did you bring back from it? Did you bring back anything
yes, the trophy.
Physical, or did you bring back any information? Now, oftentimes, my most profound moments like that, when I feel that I've been contacted, if you want to call it that, I've felt like I got information from it.
The
a download.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The information is firstly a radical increase in the obviousness of the fact of that our intelligence is embedded like a Russian doll in greater intelligence. That whatever we think of as human intelligence is embedded within greater, mostly completely unknown, greater non-human intelligence. And I use the word human simply means what we conventionally think of as a human being.
Well, that sounds in agreement with what I was calling the higher self, that the higher self is extending beyond this human experience.
Yeah.
And
my sense is that the higher self teaches you, that a lot of the stuff that we do get in meditation when we're very still, as you mentioned, I think that's coming from stuff we already know at the non-human level, is coming through. And that's why I'm really probing as to whether this felt like it was a higher self experience or whether it went beyond that, to another higher self. Obviously a higher self.
I think, yeah, it somehow, it feels like before, even though in some way I knew the higher self was me, myself, somehow it feels like the higher self had a sense of distance from me. And when I'm meditating, then the sense of time and space falls away. And so then the higher self has much more direct access. But now it feels like, even as I'm talking right now, it feels this higher self is much more integrated within me and expressing itself. Like I can't express myself as small Mo anymore. It's always mixed in with this greater, higher.
It unlocked some doors for you.
Definitely.
But that's what I was saying. It's about remembering. And I always feel like anything that unfolds in front of us, no matter how bizarre, how strange, how normal, it's about us, because I do find when things happen, there's an aspect of me that goes, oh, okay, like I knew that, even though I didn't consciously. And yet there's a knowingness inside me that knows that somewhere in the recess of whatever this thing is that I am, there is a knowledge. Remembering might be the wrong word, because they say remembering, but maybe it's just a realization that actually I've got two legs, but I'm always standing on one. Does that make sense? It's like realization that actually there's more.
Yeah, the knower. There's a knower that is time. That's probably timeless. Well, I want to hang out with you, Mo. I think you do fun things. I want to go on some field trips with you.
Yeah, you know, who know? Really, everything is possible. Everything is possible.
No, you sound like you know how to have a good time.
I'm thinking the message for anybody is practice serendipity. Serendipity for anybody listening means the apparently accidental experience of good luck, and good, especially serendipity can be meeting the people that we need to meet. And so, and practicing serendipity would mean opening ourselves to the possibility and the reality of serendipity, and also in the same way to assume miracles.
Yeah.
And if we do that, it's going to increase the chance of these things happening.
Yeah. So another question: you visited this site a couple of years ago, and now you've gone back?
Yes.
Do you have the sense that this is like a permanent installation of some kind, or does it?
Oh, quite clearly. It's for whatever reason, it's a happening place.
Now, do you think? And I would, never ask you to divulge where this is or anything, but if I was to just wander up there on my own, would I see? That would be actually a good test. If I went up there without you,
good.
Would I see what you saw?
Yeah, very good. And what I understand about this place is that it has a reputation for this, going back many decades at least. And I think the name of this mountain signifies that. But I actually have to ask.
Similar to Sedona.
Yes.
Say what?
Sedona.
Arizona.
Yeah. You didn't go to Arizona.
There's a place called Sedona.
In Arizona.
Yeah, I know. I've been to Sedona. I've been all over Sedona. There's all kinds of mystical stuff they claim. That you can,
And you didn't have
all
an
kinds of
experience there?
I didn't have one in Sedona. I landed at the Sedona airport, which was a pretty cool experience. But no. But this is like, it's thought of in the same genre as Sedona.
Well, I think from the sounds of it, I think so. I for whatever reason, my friend, I said, let's record what we're talking about this morning, but he said he doesn't want the location known. If you said, well, I heard from Mo about this place, I really want to go, I'd check with him and see what he feels about it. Like that.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to go. I would fly to Germany to see it if it was as cool as you say it is.
Well, I have a feeling, I mean, it's an important decision that there's also Sami's friend, now my friend, who lives right there. That's a really important decision, because if this information gets out, there's going to be a lot of people going there.
Well, I'm not saying we should make it public, but you could tell me, offline.
You're not public.
I won't tell anybody, I promise.
What?
It shouldn't be hidden.
This is my feeling. This is my feeling.
Mm.
Laura, you can have that conversation with Sami.
Yeah, because otherwise it smacks of,
Yeah.
you know, certain people having the privilege and nobody else. And I don't think that's viable.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
agree.
not right. Obviously, you know, you can't account for general public and behaviour and what their reaction will be. But we ourselves, look at you, Mo, you had every intention of communicating and then on 2 occasions chose not to. And that's your innate, your soul telling you, let's just be happy with what we've got right now. Next time you might have more. But I think for you, it's affirmation, complete confirmation, affirmation that this really does exist.
I think,
and I think that's beautiful. You weren't greedy.
yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And something in me just said, on the one hand, knowing if I just insisted, right, I'm going to go down, I'm going to really dive deeply into that, well, that would mean the information that would come would take me on probably on a different path. And, you know, to me, I'm very interested in how we can be free to choose fully based on whatever the reality is right now, instead of feeling like, well, my life really begins when I go down the hill and get into the spacecraft and get a whole lot of information. I think it's much, much better to be where we are and open right from where we are. And your questions, Lee, or my questions, or our own interest, or your interest, Laura, opens ourselves up now. And who knows what is, you know, is absolutely present right now if we ourselves tune into it.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think it's there. And I don't know that it's a physical thing, you know. I think you can access it. You know, there's probably multiple things going on. That's the other thing that makes it confusing.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, what you experienced last weekend might be actually a whole different category of experience than what I've experienced. Yet they're both beyond, you know, what we normally experience. You know, but we get confused talking about it because I'm talking about one category of some super experience. You're talking about another category of super experience.
I think that's very, very true. And I'm just remembering what you asked about what came back from it. And I must say, for myself, the sense much more strongly of there being a greater intelligence is that, you know, it's a little bit like, I'll give you an analogy. Let's say we're humans, right? And there are little kittens. And we let the kittens play with each other, and they're playing, and suddenly we see there's a scrawny, skinny kitten, and there's the big bully kitten, the alpha kitten of the litter, and we feel responsible, we feel connected, we love our kittens, we love all of our kittens, and we see if we don't intervene, the smallest and scrawniest will die, right? And there's a much greater sense that it might look as though some really stupid decisions are happening right now on the planet, but it feels like there's kind of like a greater intelligence that will just nudge a little bit this way, or intervene a little bit this way, or show itself a little bit, maybe on this mountain by me going there, and then I'm talking about it as a tiny example, and is to say, okay, you've been playing, that's too far. And I think we can start to look at different events that have already happened and maybe even more in the coming time, that will say, okay, you really went up to the limit of being nasty, but that you're really going to be so stupid and really wipe out most of humanity. No, that's too far, and that we are experiencing more and more obvious presence of this greater intelligence that's helping us to respond appropriately better, to say, to defend ourselves against such forces. So I'm a lot more optimistic. A lot more optimistic. I mean, I'm exploding with optimism at this point, actually. Even if there's going to be, you know, quite possibly nasty disasters along the way. That's the biggest message, I think.
Yeah.
I better stop talking.
Yeah. Well, that's a very positive message. And it's one, you know, that I would agree to. Also, I've had the experience of tapping into universal consciousness, is how I would just definitely describe it. Just where I knew whatever the universe knew, I knew it. And I could tell you at the time, I could see how the universe was formed, how every part of it fit together, what it was all doing together. It was so cool. But then once I got away from that state, I couldn't bring it back into my three-dimensional brain. You know, it wasn't transferable.
If you, next time you have that experience, my experience is if you fully stay in your body and mind, practices of mindfulness, that you can integrate that information so much more than if you allow yourself to go out of your mind and body, if you're not mindful while it's happening.
This is pretty much out of body experience, so there was no way to do that. And like I said before, I think there's different categories of these sort of super experiences. That was a super experience, to be completely out of body and in total consciousness. But consciousness of knowledge or universal awareness, I suppose. I don't know. Words just fail. And I remember aspects of it. And I remember, you know, a lot of the senses I had, but I can't remember the data. You know, see, I'm a scientist. What would prove it to me is if I got the data and I could go find it and test it, and then I go, that was good data. You know, I tested it and proved it.
You can see the problem with, you know, I regard people like the Buddha as absolutely a scientist. Suck it and see.
Yeah.
Test, do something, experience something, and see what comes out. Our friend, Laura's friend too, a man who was a Buddhist monk for 50 years, he speaks about Wirklichkeit, which is the German word for reality. And the verb from Wirklichkeit is was wirkt. And was wirkt means what works, or what comes out of it is the test of what reality is. So with the scientific mind, it's possible that the scientific mind is not completely, the materialist scientific mind is not completely, has been corrupted in some way, Do you know what I'm saying, Laura?
Yeah, well, the story of Rasputin and his disagreement with the physician, the royal physician, is proof of that. You know, because there was this, do you know the story, you guys?
I know it.
Lee?
I don't remember it. I've heard it.
Where he argued with the physician, and he was very angry because he felt Rasputin wasn't qualified to do the work. Obviously, he was feeling threatened by, you know, the queen or whoever asking him to take care of her child. And he said, you don't know this, that, and the other. And Rasputin said, but how do you prove pain? You can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't feel it. And yet somebody tells you they're in obvious pain. How do you know there's pain?
Yeah.
You know, and that was always a real riveting moment for me of understanding that just because you can't physically touch it and recreate it doesn't make it not so.
That's true. That's completely true. But I'm still looking, you know, I'm looking to get that information where some being says, if you go up here 10 meters, dig a hole down 3 feet, you will find a box, and in that box there'll be a golden cup, you know, and then I'll go, wow, that was real, you know. If I
Well,
I'll
I'll give you the example that our friend Sami gave this morning. Now I'll make it very short. When he was in Spain, he is the founder of one of the founders of the project we do in Colombia. And while he was in Spain, he was sending us messages about light language, and which is kind of a way of seeing and a way of speaking that involves geometry and light. I can't speak about it so well. Sometimes I get an understanding about it. He knows it very well. This is kind of more of reality for him than anything that we know about, that we normally talk about. Now, he started talking that way in a messages to us, and then he said, right, I'm going off to Colombia, and I'm going to go off into the jungle, and I don't know how long we'll be there. And Laura and I looked at each other and went, holy heaven, will he ever come back? And he went up to the mountains to this place where nobody goes unless you're a Kogi, and he goes meets different leaders of the Kogis, and then he comes to the final one, and he says to the man in Spanish, the man understands enough Spanish, and he says, I have come from the sun, and you must listen to me. And normally anybody speaking like that will just say, get out of here, you're not part of our culture, go away. And the guy says, oh, we've been waiting for you, welcome. So it all sounds crazy, except he met this guy, and that would be an example of something scientifically significant, where he did something and the result was not what he possibly could have expected, and he got this confirmation from outside. You see what I mean? That has scientific value in my book.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling maybe we should wind up for today.
I think, yeah, that sounds good. It's been really fascinating. It's left me with a lot to think about. I hope you'll post this. So
this one I will definitely post. This one definitely post. And wait a moment.